Good morning and happy holidays, everybody.
Good morning.
And good morning, Steve Warren. Can you hear us?
I can hear you loud and clear. How can you hear me, Jeff?
Loud and clear. Without further ado, over to you, sir.
Great, thank you very much. And good morning, Pentagon Press Corps. It's great to see you all again. I hope you had a nice holiday weekend. A lot of us here were able to talk to our families, and some even got to see the new Star Wars movie. This morning, I've got a lot of news for you. I'd like to talk about Ramadi briefly before giving you an overview of the rest of the battlefield. I assume we have our opening map up, number one. As you saw yesterday, the Iraqi security forces have achieved considerable success in Ramadi and have raised the Iraqi flag over the provincial government center in the downtown area. The clearance of the government center is a significant milestone and is the result of many months' hard work. The coalition conducted more than 630 airstrikes since July, with more than 150 occurring in the last month alone. We trained several of the Iraqi Army brigades, CTS units, and police forces who fought there. We provided specialized engineering equipment to clear IEDs, a floating bridge to help get combat power into downtown Ramadi, and we partnered with the Iraqis to give advice and assistance at multiple Iraqi Army headquarters. I'd like to show you our video of the CTS raising the Iraqi flag, over the Anbar provincial government headquarters yesterday. So, Divids, please roll that first video. Divids, do we have the video? Okay, looks like we don't have a video, so I'll keep pressing. Video's coming up. This falls into the awkward silence category. Okay, Tom, if you could bring up the Ramadi map next. The areas in green here on the Ramadi map are areas that the ISF have cleared. The unshaded areas have not yet been cleared. Now we can go back to the opening map. We've got several close fights ongoing that I'll highlight for you today. In Sinjar, which is star number 3 on your opening map, we continue to keep relentless pressure on ISIL. As you may remember, when ISIL lost Sinjar last month, they also lost the ability to use Highway 47 between Raqqa and Mosul. They were forced onto much slower secondary roads through the desert south of Sinjar and Tal Afar. On December 25th and 26th, we conducted a series of strikes on these secondary roads in order to further degrade ISIL's ability to move fighters and supplies between Iraq and Syria. Let's take a look at one of the airstrike videos of that so you can see what I'm talking about for these roads. So let's try this second video. Divids and Tom, go ahead and roll that second video. Moving to Syria. In Tishreen, which is a new star on your map, it's star number 8, to the northwest of Raqqa, Syrian defense forces successfully captured the Tishreen Dam late Saturday evening. Now let's take a quick look at that area. Pull up the Tishreen map now. This is the first time you've seen this map, so let me quickly orient you to it. Aleppo is to the left, numbered 1. 2 is the town of Manbij, which is at the center of the Manbij pocket that we've sometimes spoken about. The Tishreen Dam is number 3, and of course number 4 is Raqqa there on the far lower right-hand corner of your screen. So the Tishreen Dam is a hydroelectric dam on the Euphrates River. It sits about 56 miles east of Aleppo. The SDF, enabled by nearly 26 airstrikes over the last several days, rapidly advanced to seize the dam, which ISIL had held since November of 2012. Losing this dam is significant because it denies ISIL an important logistics route between the Manbij pocket and Raqqa. During the 4-day offensive to capture the dam, the SDF liberated more than 10 villages and 235 square kilometers, while coordinating strikes that killed over 100 enemy combatants. As I've briefly highlighted, this has been a busy week. As I've mentioned before, in addition to our tactical operation, we're also striking at the head of this snake by hunting down and killing ISIL leaders. Over the past month, we've killed 10 ISIL leadership figures with targeted airstrikes, including several external attack planners, some of whom are linked to the Paris attacks. Others had designs on further attacking the West. This is a long list. I'll quickly run through it. On December 7th, we killed Rawand Dishler Tahir, an external operations facilitator, killed near Raqqa, Syria. Tahir was a trusted ISIL member who was associated with command and control, as well as the handling of and transferring of money and equipment. Also on 7 December, Khalil Ahmed Ali Al-Wais, also known as Abu Wadha, he was the ISIL emir of Kirkuk province, killed near Hawija, Iraq. He had a long history of terrorist activities against the U.S. and Iraqi forces here in Iraq. On December 8th, Abu Anas, an ISIL IED cell facilitator, was killed near Kirkuk. His death will disrupt ISIL's ability to conduct IED attacks near Kirkuk. On December 9th, the coalition killed Yunus Kalash, also known as Abu Jawdat. He was ISIL's deputy financial emir in Mosul. His death will burden senior cadre to find a technically skilled and trustworthy replacement. Also on December 9th, the coalition killed Mithaq Najim, who was ISIL's deputy emir in Kirkuk province. He was killed near Hawija, Iraq. Najim's removal disrupts ISIL's ability to train, command, and maintain fighters in Kirkuk province. The next day, on December 10th, a Syria-based Bangladeshi named Siful Haq Sujan was killed near Raqqa, Syria. Sujan was an external operations planner who was educated as a computer systems engineer in the United Kingdom. He supported ISIL's hacking efforts, their anti-surveillance technology, and their weapons development. Now that he's dead, ISIL has lost a key link between their networks. On December 10th, Akram Muhammad Saeed Faris, also known as Akram Abu. He was an ISIL commander and executioner, killed near his base of operations in Tal Afar. On December 26th, Abdul Qadir Hakim, another ISIL external operations facilitator. He was killed in Mosul. Hakim was a veteran fighter, a forgery specialist, and had links to the Paris attack network. He was part of ISIL's external operations group who enabled attacks against Western targets. His death removes an important facilitator with many connections in Europe. On December 27th, Tashin al-Hayali, who is another external operations facilitator, was killed near Mosul. And last but certainly not least, and this is your headline, Sharafi al-Mudain. He was a Syrian-based ISIL member with a direct link to Abdel Hamid Aboud, the Paris attack cell leader. We killed him on December 24th in Syria. Al-Mudain was actively planning additional attacks against the West. So my point is this: we will continue to hunt ISIL leaders who are working to recruit, plan, and inspire attacks against the United States of America and our allies. That said, I'll now take your questions. I guess Bob or Lita, whoever's man in the shop for the Associated Press, let's start with you.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for doing this. Can you give us just a few more details on two things? One, if you have any additional details on the death of this this ISIL leader who had a direct link to the Paris attack, or the one who was killed on the 24th. And then just on Ramadi, can you give us some better granularity on any casualties, the number of casualties that the Iraqis suffered, any casualties on enemy side, and how many you believe may still remain in and around Ramadi as they move to clear it out?
Not too many additional details to present. He was killed by an airstrike in Syria, and that's really as far as we're going to go on him for now. Hopefully, as time goes on and we're able to develop some other things, we'll be able to get some more information out. On Ramadi, and Tom or Jeff, go ahead and pull up the Ramadi map. And I'll get it here in front of me so I can speak off of it. Casualty counts are generally low. We don't have exact numbers of casualties for the Iraqi security forces. They keep those numbers. But generally speaking, our sense is that the numbers have been low, really in the low double digits, if that. Tens, 20s. But I don't have a good accounting of that. Numbers remaining. I'll tell you, the numbers are small. We don't have a good count, a good head count of the enemy in Ramadi. What we do believe is that their capability is reduced, right? So often we think less about numbers and more about what can they do. And we don't think that the remaining enemy has the oomph to push the Iraqi security forces off of their positions. Now, that said, there have been counterattacks today. There were several counterattacks today, small. Generally, these take the form of a team, maybe with a heavy machine gun, or maybe with an RPG, so a team 3 to 5, conducting harassing attacks. We have not seen this enemy able to mass any type of combat, any type of real combat power in any type of effort to really conduct a concerted counterattack. Doesn't mean it's not possible, just means we haven't seen it yet. We believe a majority of this enemy has been dispersed into smaller pockets. Many have moved kind of north and east. In fact, you can see on the map there this area that we refer to as the shark's fin, where you can see kind of where the Euphrates River there goes north and then turns quickly south. We've seen a lot of them flow that way. We saw them actually loading up families into their cars. Don't know if it was their own families or if these were others. We think it was their families. Load them up into cars and move into that shark's fin area. So we'll continue to track on them, eventually get them rooted out of there as well. But as far as the downtown Ramadi area, we have not seen significant combat power.
To Jamie McIntyre.
Steve, a couple quick things. One is I hope you'll provide us with the list that you read from, because I didn't get all the spellings of the names that you pronounced. But two questions about that. You mentioned that one of the leaders was killed in an airstrike. Were any of these ISIL leaders killed by direct action on the ground by U.S. or other forces? And two, the broader question, every time we hear about leadership being killed, whether it's ISIL or the Taliban or Al-Qaeda, it's always unclear what actual effect that has on the ability of the group to operate. You mentioned all of these killings, and you mentioned that they were important for whatever reason. But can you quantify at all this continued erosion of the ISIL leadership? What real effect is that having on the ground in terms of defeating ISIL?
Yeah, fair questions. So all of the 10 names that I read were all killed by airstrikes. And I don't have a listing of what platform conducted each strike. Many of these are conducted with Predators or other unmanned vehicles, but not exclusively. So I don't have the breakout, but they were all done from the air. How do these leadership strikes affect this enemy? They affect them in several ways. First and foremost, I think any organization that sees its middle and upper management degraded in this way is going to lose some of their synergy, right? It's difficult to command and control an organization without a command and control personnel, right? Without leaders to be able to facilitate the activities, your ability to conduct activities goes down. And I think we've seen some of that on the battlefield, right? We've seen these string of these successes begin to pile up, right? We saw Tikrit, and then Beji, and then Sinjar. We saw the Kurdish Flat pushed towards Kirkuk significantly through the fall. Now we see Ramadi across the border in Syria. We saw Al-Hal. We saw strikes in the tri-border area of Iraq, Syria, and Jordan. We've seen the Mara Line operations, and now we've seen the Teshreen Dam. So part of those successes is attributable to the fact that this organization is losing its leadership. So we're striking at the head of this snake, like I said. We haven't severed the head of this snake yet, and it's still got fangs. We have to be clear about that. There's much more fighting to do. But our ability to dismantle their facilitation networks, our ability to dismantle their ground command and control, our ability to take away some of their enforcers, these executioners and these extortionists, that eats away at their ability to instill fear in the population they control. It eats away at their ability to extort money from the population, which of course reduces their funding. So all of these various factors add up to a cumulative effect, and I think we've seen that effect with our battlefield successes. And I think the other piece, if I could go on for just another moment, Jamie, the other piece is that several of these HVI strikes were external attack planners, right? These are individuals who are specifically working to strike the West. They want to strike in Europe. They want to strike in our very own homeland. And it's important that people understand that as long as those external attack planners are operating, the United States military will hunt them and we will kill them.
Tom Bowman.
Hey, Steve, I wonder if you can give us an estimate when Ramadi will be completely cleared. General Milley, the Army chief, was over there last week. He was told by Iraqi generals they expected it to be completely cleared by mid-January. I wonder if you agree with that assessment. And also talk a bit about the importance of U.S. airstrikes here in Ramadi. There was an Iraqi officer quoted as saying 80% of the effort in Ramadi was due to American airstrikes.
Well, I would agree that probably 80% of the effort, I would agree with that Iraqi officer who said that 80% of the effort in Ramadi was due to coalition airstrikes. I think that's a fair assessment. We don't kind of keep those numbers. That's really just more instinct and feel, but I wouldn't argue with that. The airstrikes have been significant. We believe that over the last 6 months, in the over 600 strikes, which translates to over 2,500 kinetic events, 2,500 different targets that destroyed, 70 V-bed truck bombs, almost 300 other enemy vehicles, nearly 800 structures, 400 various types of weapon emplacements. This is significant. And this is what really facilitated or enabled the Iraqi forces to move in. And this is how modern warfare is, by the way. This is no different than the way any army should fight. It's using that air power as the force multiplier that it really can be. How long will it take them to clear the rest of Ramadi? Too soon to tell, Tom. There are still, so clearing is, there's really two steps to that, right? Number one, eliminate the remaining enemy. Number two, reduce the obstacles, right? These IEDs, the booby traps, the entire houses that have been rigged to blow. This is going to take a while because any house could be rigged to blow. And so as the Iraqi forces are trying to dismantle these various booby traps, they still have to be on the lookout for remaining bands of ISIL fighters who are out to harass them. So it'll be a process. I'm not going to put a time on it, Tom, because it'll be wrong. But it will take some time, I'll tell you that much.
Thanks for doing this. There are reports that the U.S. landed forces in vicinity of Kirkuk in an airborne operation. Do you confirm or deny these reports, Colonel?
These reports are fantasy. I don't know where they come from. Presumably they come from individuals who want to try to drive a wedge between the U.S. coalition and the government of Iraq. Yeah, it's ludicrous. If we are going to put some forces somewhere, if we're going to conduct a raid somewhere, we're going to do that in complete coordination with the Iraqi government, period.
My name is John Hines with One American News, and thank you, Steve, very much for the information. Great stuff. I was wondering if you could comment on the willingness of the IA soldiers to stand and fight and the cooperation of the Golden Brigade and the IA. A little bit.
Well, I think the Iraqi Army's willingness to fight is pretty well displayed in this Ramadi map, right? I mean, having seized Camp Warar, having cleared the Tamim, Al Tamim neighborhood, having seized the Palestine Bridge, seized the Anbar Operations Center, the Zangora checkpoint, and now moving into downtown Ramadi. So I think their actions speak louder than any words that I could produce here. But keep in mind, all of this is done in conjunction with this devastating air power that we're able to deliver, across the breadth and depth of this battlefield. The Iraqi forces have worked well together. The CTS, the Counterterror Service, have been in the lead in most of these fights. The 10th Iraqi Division has the northern sector up there by the Anbar Operations Command, the yellow circle on your Ramadi map. That was all 10th Division. The rest of it was a kind of a mix of counterterror service and Iraqi Army conventional forces. But yeah, there's been no notable issues of these forces working together.
Hey, Steve, Tony Capaccio. On the strikes, but are the leadership strikes, did the French have any, did they have any direct involvement in the strike that killed the Paris facilitator? And then I had a Ramadi follow-up.
Tony, I'm not going to get into that level of detail. The French certainly are free to speak for themselves. What I'll tell you is it was a coalition effort in everything that we do here. And I'm going to leave it at that. What's your Ramadi question?
What's the role of the Sunni militia? There's been a lot. What has been the role? Have they been attacking or basically holding ground? And can you give a sense of how American training has played out in terms of what you and the Army would call combined arms operations in this offensive?
Right, important question, and there's been a lot of discussion I've seen in the news about the Sunni fighters and their role here. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. We've enrolled about 8,000 Sunni tribal fighters in the PMF program. Of those, we've trained about 5,000 of them. The way this training works is that they come into a training location where Iraqi security forces provide the direct training. and those Iraqi security forces are overseen by American forces. So it's American forces providing guidance, advice, and assistance to Iraqi Army trainers who are training Sunni tribal fighters. The training consists of some training in a garrison environment. The Sunni tribal fighters are then moved sort of to the front line, if you will, where they cycle through the battlefield for a period of time, usually 1 to 2 weeks. They then come off the front lines, return back to the training site to finalize their training, figure out what they learned while they were on the front line. When that's complete, we now have a trained Sunni tribal fighter who will be used primarily as part of the holding and stabilization force. So they are beginning to cycle through, well, they're really at the planning phase now, of getting these tribal fighters cycled into downtown Ramadi, where they will form the bedrock of the holding force in Ramadi. Does that answer your question, Tony?
There's been a number of commentators saying the main reason this has succeeded is because Sunni tribal fighters have gone in to basically into the fight. You get a lot of TV commentators saying that. That's not what I get from you. They're basically going in, holding after the Iraqis have taken, the Iraqi military has taken the territory.
Right. The Sunni tribal fighters, they cycle through, small groups for short periods of time. They were not, frankly, a significant player in the seizure of Ramadi. They will be significant players in the stabilization and the holding of Ramadi, but up until now, their presence, while every man counts, every rifle matters, they have not had simply not a large enough presence to really make much of a difference.
Combined arms aspect of the attack. I mean, how has U.S. training played out here?
Oh, thank you. I forgot. Yeah. That's, I think, been a very important. Well, what we've seen here, I believe, is something of a validation that the training works, right? Which it's something we say in the Army all the time, and we've seen it once again on the ground. Remember, the Iraqi Army that we left in 2011 was an army that had been trained for counterinsurgency. That means route clearance, checkpoint operations, IED reduction, that type of work. What the Iraqi army that collapsed in 2014 was a counterinsurgency army. They were not prepared, they were not trained, and they were not ready for a conventional fight, the conventional assault that ISIL brought to Mosul and beyond. So the last year has been a process of reconstructing, rebuilding, and refitting the Iraqi army. So now they are outfitted with modern American equipment, modern conventional training, and of course supported by devastating air power. But what are some exact examples of this combined arms training? Well, number one, and I think probably most notable, is the river crossing. The 814th Combat Bridging Company came here to Iraq to train the Iraqi Bridging Battalion how to do bridging operations. This is a complex operation. This is grown-up work here. This is advanced warfare. I don't know that we've seen a bridging operation in the Middle East conducted by Middle East armies since the 1970s. So this is advanced warfare. This is an advanced technique at any rate. And so they use those techniques to bridge the Thar Canal, which is a canal off the Euphrates River, gain a foothold in southern Ramadi, and then begin to push into the center of town. Additionally, we've seen some good work in the combined arms breaching side. The Iraqis fired a Miklik just the other day in an attempt or in an effort to breach the IED minefields that ISIL has set up along the southern approaches into downtown Ramadi. Again, this is advanced work. This is using the principles of SOSRA to, secure, obscure, and reduce obstacles. So all of this has come to play, and I think the last piece is probably the integration of air and ground, right? The Iraqis now have a functioning Air Force. which includes some F-16s. And we've seen the Iraqis able to integrate their air with their ground, in addition to the integration of coalition air on their ground, which is really, we have a much larger role in that. So all these pieces, I think, the bridging, obstacle reduction, training, equipment, has all come together here in Ramadi. But again, I think it's really important to keep in mind that we still have a fight ahead of us. Mosul is different than Ramadi. It's a big, big, big city. And it's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take more training. It's going to take more equipment, and it's going to take patience.
Hi, Colonel Warren, Tara Kopp with Stars and Stripes. Two on Ramadi. On the attack phase, were U.S. Apaches used? I know they'd been offered for the Ramadi campaign. And are any particular commandos or U.S. ground forces assisting in the attack on Ramadi? And then for the hold phase, could you describe the state of Ramadi right now? Can it function as a city, its infrastructure, water, sewer? And as the Sunni forces move in, will they be in mostly a policing role? Would there be like a ring of ISF around that to ensure that ISIS doesn't end up moving back into Ramadi after the fact?
So there were no U.S. ground forces involved in any way, shape, or form in the fight for Ramadi. There were no Apache helicopters. There were no attack helicopters of any type. The only coalition, the only U.S. involvement in the fight for Ramadi has been the delivery of air power and the training of Iraqi soldiers and advising and assisting the Iraqi security forces from their headquarters in Al-Taqaddum. That's it. Status of Ramadi now. A little early to tell. There's been significant damage done to that city, I'll tell you right now. Between the damage done to it when ISIL seized the city initially, the damage that continued while ISIL held it, and of course some of the damage that is just a natural result of modern urban combat, there is significant damage in that city. And it's going to take time to rebuild it. Now, we do know that both the United States of America and the coalition have pledged millions of dollars for the reconstruction, the rebuilding, and the stabilization of Ramadi. We expect soon we will begin to see, once the security situation is stabilized enough, the international community come in with humanitarian relief efforts. And this is all part of the stabilization and a reconstruction plan that the governor of Anbar is now working very closely with the Iraqi central government to finalize, to coordinate with the United Nations and other aid agencies so that we can, the moment that city is secure, get the needed help, get the money flowing, and get the reconstruction going.
And then just to follow up on that, would the Sunni forces be inside the interior of the city as like policing role when there still be a protective ring of ISF around Ramadi to prevent ISIS returning?
Yeah, so it'll be the Sunni tribal fighters along with police, right? Both federal and local police who will provide the security and the stabilization for Ramadi. It's up to the Iraqi security forces how they will further deploy and further use their forces. Right now, we envision the Iraqi security forces moving to other battlefields.
Hey, Steve. Tara actually just covered most of my questions, but on the U.S. and sorry, I have a cold. On the U.S. and Ramadi, are there any advisors in there now in any place? Are they anywhere closer than Taqaddum helping the Iraqi security forces? And there were some reports yesterday that ISIS was leaving Ramadi as the Iraqi security forces started moving into the government center. Do you know where they're going? You mentioned the shark fin or whatever area near the river, but are they actually leaving the city and going to other cities like Fallujah or moving west? Or do you have any insight into that? And then I have one question on the HVTs after that.
There are no U.S. ground forces located anywhere other than Taqadum. No U.S. ground forces located anywhere other than Taqadum. Taqadum is where all the ground forces were that were advising and assisting the Iraqi security forces as they conducted this fight. No one moved forward from there. The enemy disposition, yeah. So I think the few that remain alive, and I think those numbers are relatively small, are moving mostly into that Shark's Fin area there to the north and east. Surely some onesies and twosies probably managed to slip through and into Fallujah. That's probable. The rest are dead.
Claire, I don't mean to belabor the point, but there are still no U.S. anywhere outside of Taqadum in near Ramadi at this point, right? Not just for the clearing phase in the past couple days, but even today?
Yeah, the U.S. forces are only in Taqadum.
One about the guy who was killed on the 24th in the airstrike. You said that he was actively planning attacks against the West. Did any of those include attacks against the U.S. homeland? Can you give us any specifics on that, or were they broader against Europe?
I don't have that level of detail for release, Courtney. We're just going to say the West. But, you know, it's important to note that all of these terrorists had eventual designs on attacking the United States. Let's be clear about that. That's what they want to do. As far as the stage of their attack planning, we're not going to go into those details yet because, you know, we want to preserve some of our options to continue striking these terrorists.
Thank you.
Gentleman from the BBC, Paul.
Hi, Colonel Warren. There's some reports that 400 people are in the Ramadi government complex with the Iraqi forces. Do you have any information on that? And in the lead up to this assault, you talked a lot about civilians within the city. Where are they now? Are they secure? Have they fled? Where have they gone?
There are 400 civilian citizens that have come to the Ramadi city center to seek shelter. The Iraqi security forces have received them and are doing all the right things as far as settling them down and administering to their needs. And I missed, you broke up there on the second part of your question.
You said in the lead up to this assault, you talked a lot about the civilians inside the city. Where are they now? Presumably you were talking about a lot more than 400. Have they fled? Are they somewhere secure? Where are they now that the city has been largely taken back by ISF?
Yeah. So too soon to tell. Presumably some left, others went into hiding. So again, keep in mind, and you see on your Ramadi map there, there's still bits of Ramadi that the Iraqi security forces have not yet had a chance to clear. That's the area that's not shaded. The point there south of the Anbar Ops Center and then moving east. So this area all has to be still cleared. As the Iraqi security forces move into these neighborhoods, they will likely meet some resistance, ambushes, IEDs, and the like. And as they're doing that, they will be looking for civilians who are in hiding or who are being held and administer to their needs as well. We don't really have a good count, though, at this point of how many remain in the city.
Do you tell any of the sort of booby traps that the ISF are running into, or the sort of IEDs and rigged houses? And then the second question is, the drone video of the flag being raised, do you think that'll be released today? I think that's what you were trying to show us earlier.
Right. Maybe we can reset it and try to show it at the end. Maybe we'll close out with the flag being raised. And yeah, they'll all be posted on the CJTFOR website. The booby traps that we see the ISIL forces setting, a lot of them are homemade explosives. So they will get their hands on fertilizer and other types of chemicals that are able to be combined into make an explosive charge. Some are with captured military equipment that they've captured over the years, whether it's in Syria or in Mosul, and they'll fashion this captured military equipment into improvised explosive devices, we call them IEDs. And so they'll use these in various ways. It's often tripwire, sometimes it's pressure plates. And they'll use these improvised explosive devices, often buried underground so that forces can't see them as they approach, often inside of a house. And there'll be either a tripwire or a pressure plate somewhere in the vicinity of that house, which, when triggered, will cause the entire house to detonate. So these are some of the kind of what we're seeing here out in Ramadi.
Colonel, at their peak, how many ISIS fighters occupied Ramadi?
Difficult to know. The max peak, we think at points it probably was as high as 800 to 1,000. Again, as any force does, they will reposition. When the Iraqi security forces crossed the river to enter southern Ramadi, we believed at that point there was maybe 250 to 350 left in the center of town. Since then, we've killed at least 100 of them from the air. So the numbers continue to be reduced. And you're going to continue to see that. As the Iraqis learn how to conduct offensive operations, what happens is, as offensive operations place pressure on an enemy, a dug-in enemy or an enemy in the defense, they will cause that enemy to have to move. And as soon as they move, they then make themselves a target for American and coalition air power. So we put this in, we put ISIL in this spot where he can stay where he is and get shot, or he can get up and move and be bombed, which is a tough choice to make, but always ends up with the same result.
Did any Shia militias take part in any of this operation to clear Ramadi?
There were no Shia militias involved in this operation for Ramadi. Primarily, we see the Shia militia really operating more in the Tigris River Valley. There are some in the Euphrates River Valley as well, but primarily their focus has been in the Tigris River Valley. And the Ramadi fight in particular has been exclusively an Iraqi Army and a CTS fight. In Fallujah, it's primarily Iraqi Army, vast majority Iraqi Army. But maybe not completely. But it's in the Tigris River Valley where we see the PMF operating.
Steve, I'm wondering if you could tell me if you see or have heard reports of any type of follow-on insurgency-style campaign from ISIS and its sympathizers in the green-shaded areas that the IA has cleared. Are you seeing any evidence of that, or do you have any expectation or concerns about that, or do you think this is going to be a pretty clear win and you'll clear these guys out entirely?
It's a little early to tell right now. We certainly have to and should expect to see some type of guerrilla insurgency operations, but frankly there aren't many left even to conduct those operations. You got to remember the approach that we've taken here has really put ISIL in a tough spot. Right, it's this operationalizing of the battlefield. So as we've pressured Ramadi, as we've rooted out the entrenched enemy there simultaneously is pressure being put against this enemy everywhere. So for them to be able to move forces around and conduct these type of operations becomes more difficult. It's like a fighter. The way you win a fight is through combination punches, right? You throw multiple punches, 2 jabs across 2 hooks. And that's what we're seeing, that's what you're seeing us do against this enemy, right? Whether it's the Teshin Dam, whether it's the Mara Line, whether it's Al-Hol, Sinjar, Beji, Ramadi, bombs in Mosul, whether it's striking their HVIs, their leadership targets, or taking away their ability to make money through Operation Tidal Wave. It's this smothering pressure that's beginning to build on this enemy that's causing them real trouble. Again, I don't want to give a bad impression. This is a big enemy. He's still got capability. He is still spread out throughout this operating area. But these combination punches that we're throwing are beginning to take effect.
Next, Jeff. Colonel Warren, you said that the Iraqi casualties were in the low double digits. You had talked about this being a very ferocious fight. In the end, did the Islamic State fighters not put up the type of fight that was expected? Did they kind of just try to run and get cut down? And also, you talked about the leadership, but overall, what has the U.S. air campaign, including, and then the actions by the ground forces in Iraq and the Syrian ground forces done to the overall strength of the Islamic State fighting force?
Yeah, so, the overall strength of the fighting force we still estimate to be somewhere between 20 and 30,000. They have a robust recruiting program, and that's been acknowledged. And so this is something that we have to deal with. And I forgot the first part of your question.
In Ramadi itself, you said that the casualties for the Iraqi army was in low double digits. Did the Islamic State militants inside Ramadi in the end not put up the type of ferocious fight that you had been expecting?
Now, there was tough fighting. There was tough fighting, particularly in the last week when the Iraqi security forces crossed the bridge and moved north into the city center. We saw real hard fighting, but it was ineffective, right? I mean, the Iraqi security forces had the unparalleled ability of the coalition air to place pressure on this enemy and to suppress them. The CTS in this case. They're becoming much more well-trained and they're experienced now, so they know how to fight. So really in this case, frankly, it was overmatched. And the ISIL forces simply couldn't withstand the pressure.
Hi, David Smith is he still speaking by the way?
No, the floor is yours.
No, he's talking.
When we had Sinjar, when we had overwhelming combat power amongst the Peshmerga and Sinjar Mountain, push south off that mountain into Sinjar, we saw the same thing. In fact, you asked me the exact same question. Why didn't ISIL put up as big of a fight? I'll tell you why. Because they're not 10 feet tall. These guys are not that tough. They're not any tougher than any other fighter out there. And when Iraqi security forces or any other force is able to mass combat power, use the fundamentals of warfare to bring pressure to bear on this enemy, they will crack and they will collapse. So, next question.
David Smith of The Guardian, just a couple of things. Are there any estimates of civilian casualties in the battle for Ramadi? And also, were any ISIL prisoners taken, and do we have a number for that? And do we know what will happen to them? And one last question, just going back to your list of ISIL people who've been killed. You mentioned one man who is from Bangladesh and educated in the UK. Do you have any more details on him, particularly his age or how long he spent in the UK?
All good questions. Unfortunately, I'm going to disappoint you. We do not have an estimate on civilian casualties yet. I have not received a report on ISIL prisoners. That's a fair question. I have not seen much reporting of ISIL prisoners being taken, though. Some have surrendered earlier on and kind of crossed the lines as they got scared, as they realized that the inevitable was coming. They would, frankly, desert or just quit. and they moved into Iraqi security force control and were processed accordingly. On our one high-value target who was killed and had been educated in the UK, I don't have any more info on him, other than what I put out. This guy was a hacker. He kind of led some of their hacking programs. He also facilitated development of weapons and some of their surveillance techniques.
Richard. Yeah, hi, Colonel Richard Sisk. You talked about some of the specialized equipment that was used by the Iraqis that were trained by the U.S. Could you talk about that as it was used to try to get at the IEDs? And was it the same U.S. unit? I think it's the 814th that helped them with that portable bridge across the canal. Also, Colonel, were you running into in Ramadi the tunnel complexes that have been evident in other locations? And lastly, part of the specialized equipment, did they have use of line charges to get rid of some of the IEDs?
Yeah. So the specialized equipment, two are most notable. Number one is the line charges. The Iraqi security forces did fire a MIG-click line charge several days ago as they tried to breach the southern defensive belt that ISIL had set up. This was a successful execution of the MIG-click. And the other, I think, notable piece of unusual equipment are armored bulldozers. We sent about 21 armored bulldozers forward for the Iraqi security forces to use. They use these armored bulldozers to do two things. One, often to try to push minefields or improvised explosive devices out of the way. But much more importantly, they'll use them to rapidly build up berms along the sides of an advancing unit. Because this enemy likes to try and bring truck bombs, or we call them V-bids, around and into the flanks of attacking forces. So what, in a great combined arms maneuver using mobility, using engineer assets to generate mobility, tanks will provide security, so they'll look down the streets and shoot anything that moves, while the armored bulldozers build up berms on either side of the road, which will prevent these truck bombs from coming in and striking flanks. And they'll advance that way with tanks, M1s and others, bringing protection, and then the armored bulldozers providing the mobility, in this case counter mobility, by erecting berms, constructing berms on either side of the road to prevent V-bids from attacking into the flanks. We did see some tunnels. We destroyed many of them. Again, used to really not significant effect, obviously, because the Iraqis were able to come in and seize the government complex. The tunnels will continue to be a problem as the Iraqis go through the process of patrolling and clearing these neighborhoods. They will have to be on the lookout for these tunnels. These are areas where this enemy can hide and conduct ambushes. These are areas where the enemy can move around and reposition if there is a confrontation or a small firefight. So the tunnels continue to be something that the Iraqis need to keep their eye on. Our pilots and our targeters have done, they've learned a lot about tunnels and how to identify them from the air. And so we strike them whenever we see them as well. You had about 7 questions there. I only got to, was there anything else?
Just the unit, the U.S. engineering unit that helped with this.
Right, the 814th out of Louisiana is who trained the Iraqi bridging battalion on how to employ and construct what we call an improved ribbon bridge. It's a ribbon bridge. I've got a video of that bridge in employment on my Twitter feed at OIRSpox, so check it out. And so, again, this is the Iraqis used that to good effect. It allowed them to move combat power from the south to the north, gain a foothold in the southern portion of the city, and then eventually move forward into the city.
Okay, thanks. Hi, Colonel Warren. There's a lot of talk, especially from the Iraqis, about retaking Mosul, but I'm wondering if the ISF will first tackle Fallujah. Colonel Garber says the ISF are in the isolation phase in Fallujah. I'm wondering if you could explain what that means. And then second, wanted to know how many Sunni forces actually participated in Ramadi and whether there are enough to, in this fight to retake Fallujah or Anbar or other Sunni areas in Iraq.
All right, those are good questions. So on Mosul, I think the most important thing to keep in mind is that the fight for Mosul started a year ago when we began shaping fires, and those shaping fires continue. And the fight for Mosul continues as we attacked south from Mount Sinjar to seize Sinjar Mountain and cut Highway 47. That contributed to the isolation of Mosul. As we attacked the road network south of Tal Afar, which I showed you a video of earlier, that further isolates Mosul, right? It further restricts this enemy's ability to resupply themselves in Mosul. So the fight for Mosul is ongoing. Right now we're in the shaping phase. As we continue to cut off the various supply lines and capabilities. The fight for Fallujah is ongoing. Right now the Iraqi security forces are approaching Fallujah from 3 directions. They are in the isolation phase of that operation, which, if you recall, we were in the isolation phase of Ramadi for several months. What is the isolation phase? That is where the attacking forces positions itself all the way around the city in various locations along the primary avenues in and out of the city. And they build a fire, and then they begin, essentially they encircle the city almost like a boa constrictor, and they will then squeeze in closer and closer into that city until eventually they're able to finally clear it, as we saw in Ramadi. So many of the same tactics applied in Ramadi are being applied in Fallujah. We don't have a timeline yet. As I've said before, the enemy does get a vote here, so we'll have to see how the fight progresses. Did that answer all your questions? I think there might have been one more that I didn't write down.
Sunni tribal forces, I mean, even if 8,000 are trained, is that really enough? Considering in the mid-2000s there were like 90,000. So I'm wondering if there are just enough Sunni tribal forces now to be effective.
Well, there's been enough to be effective in Ramadi, so that's proof of the principle. I think often what we see is that success builds on itself, so I expect maybe we'll see some more of these tribal forces now begin to come together. So we think that there's enough combat power out there to get the job done, yes.
We're about out of time, but quick speed round here from Dan, Jamie, and Courtney.
Colonel Warren, Dan Lamothe with the Post here. There's been a number of photographs released in recent days out of Taqadum of U.S. corpsmen and things of that sort providing medical support for Iraqi casualties as they're coming back from Ramadi. Can you provide any kind of clarity on, I guess, what kind of medical support the U.S. and the coalition is providing to the ISF at Taqadum, and I guess more broadly as the casualties add up in battles like this?
Right. So 2 things. First off, before I answer that, hey Jeff, it turns out we have the flag waving video now queued up. So before we close out, we'll play that, but not yet. On the corpsmen, so there's a forward surgical team at Taqadum. This provides level 1, stabilization care, the so-called golden hour, before the casualties are able to be evacuated by Iraqis back to level 2 and higher care facilities.
Colonel, thanks for doing this. Just a quick question about Manbij in northern Syria. There seem to have been a significant number of strikes there in the last couple of days. I'm just wondering if you could expand a little bit about the strategic significance of Manbij. Is it are those strikes designed to clear a way to further impede ISIS's move into Turkey or near the Turkish border, or further south towards Raqqa? And have any of the 50 U.S. Special Operations Forces been involved in the operations near Manbij?
Most of those strikes that you were reading about in Manbij were in support of the Tishreen Dam operation. I'd mentioned 26 strikes in the previous week, killing over 100 enemy, as the Syrian Democratic Forces were able to seize that dam. So that's where the focus has been, and I'm not going to talk about our Special Forces guys.
Just a quick one follow-up on Ramadi. Have you seen any numbers on how many ISIS fighters may have melted back into the population at this point, and maybe they're, like, I don't know, forming any kind of cells? Do you have any numbers at all on that?
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have good numbers on that right now, Courtney. It's certainly something that we're keeping an eye on, though. As this enemy begins to feel the pressure, as I said earlier, it stands to reason that they may attempt to adopt insurgent or guerrilla tactics. So it's something that we've got to keep an eye on. I don't have good numbers for you on that. I think the numbers right now at this point are fairly low. Again, we've had a very significant effectiveness of our air power, and so we've really killed a lot of bad guys here. That said, it doesn't mean that we won't see some sort of an insurgent cell develop. So it's something that's got to be kept an eye on. That's part of the reason why we want Sunni tribal fighters who are from this area. That's your best defense against this type of thing, is competent locals who understand their neighborhoods and their towns and are much, much more able to counter these type of insurgent or guerrilla campaigns.
All right, that's it for here. Let's roll the video.
Video divots. We got to watch this one. We spent a lot of time. So there you have the first Iraqi flag to fly on top of the Iraqi Government Center building since May. So this was a proud day for the Iraqis. We're proud of them for their efforts, and we're going to continue this partnership. With that, I'll see everyone next week.
Way out, was that video taken by a U.S. UAS?
Yeah, that was taken by an American drone, or UAS, sorry, Air Force.
Thanks, everybody.